Okay, so today we are going to look at another piece of software which is called the library programs. This is another software on top of we started the OS, which is the operating system, and we started the utility software, which includes defragmentation, virus checkers, and disk checkers. Today we want to look at another piece, which is the library programs. Alright, so when you are developing a large software, for example, you may have two options to work with. Number one is to develop everything from scratch. Sorry, let's remove this one. Is to develop everything from scratch, and this may work if you are working on a unique project whose code is not familiar with any other code that is out there in the market. But the second option that you may have, and is normally a wise idea to work with, is to borrow code from other sources. Alright, and it is this second option that we are going to dwell upon for most of our lesson. Well, maybe as a new programmer you may not have the money and the resources to build a very big software right from scratch, so you can look on the internet and you can come across reusable code that you can buy or you can use for free to develop your own software. And this is where library software or library programs comes in. In fact, most of the programming languages that are out there, they are shipped with a good amount of free code that you can just import into your own program or into your own software that you are developing. And these are like the basic examples of library programs. So let's define the library programs which we are going to be discussing for the rest of our lesson. So these are collections of resources that is mostly code used to develop software. Okay, these are what we call library programs. The reason why we call them library programs is basically that they stay in what may look like a physical library or what may look like a library in our everyday sense of a library. So when you want to use a certain piece of code, you go to the library, you import the code that you want, you bring it into your software, and you can use it like that. I can give you an example of, say, when you look at the Microsoft Office programs, you will see that their appearance or the design of the graphics is basically the same. Let's say MS Office. The design of the graphics or appearance or we can say the look and feel of the programs. The look and feel of Microsoft Office programs, I'm talking about Word, Publisher, Excel, PowerPoint, is basically the same. And this is because they are using the same graphical user interface. So we can create a picture like this. Microsoft has a graphical user interface, and it uses this GUI when it is developing Word, and it uses the same GUI when it is developing Excel. It also uses the same when it is developing PowerPoint. So you realize that these code which are in the graphical user interface, or this code, can be put in a library, and the people who are developing Word, they just go to the library and they import the code into their Microsoft Word. Maybe another crew is developing Excel, it just goes to the library, it imports Excel into it exports the GUI into itself, and the same for those who will be developing PowerPoint. And this is a big advantage because it speeds up the development process. It speeds up development process. And number two, it also allows the developer to focus on the functionality rather than the appearance. That is when we look at the GUI example of Microsoft Office. The developer will focus on functionality more than developing the graphical user interface, that is the GUI. You also see this being applied by framework developers like those who work with Laravel. They have a lot of free code that can do many functions. So there is free code that can do many functions. And if you want to develop, let's say for example, you want to develop a messaging application, you are going to put more effort in the messaging part rather than in the look and appearance of the app. And you also will find that the chance of having mistakes in your code are greatly lowered, because when you use library programs, you are using programs that were developed, number one, by experts, and code that has been used by many other people. So if there might have been any mistakes or errors or bugs within the code, they would have been found and corrected by the time you get to buy or try to use that free library program, or maybe even a paid library program. So it's rigorously tested. Okay, let's look at another example of this free library software. They come in, we can look at the print function. Let's say the print function in Python. If you want to print the word Arnold, you just go and you say print okay. This function or this keyword print is understood, the operation of the word print, how it interacts with the compiler or the interpreter, is understood by the people who made Python. As a user of Python, I simply have to type print. I am actually using code that was already written by the guys who made Python. So you will see that I don't have to tell my program how printing works. I simply have to use this print function which is already within the program. So I'm actually using a free part of the program because I am not programming how printing works. I'm just writing print, and it is already within the libraries of Python. So this is a very big advantage. Okay, let's look at one of the most common library programs that you may come across, and this is the DLL. If you are into installing programs on Windows or maybe using games, there is a very big chance that you have come across this term, errors also, DLL missing and stuff like that. DLL stands for Dynamic Link Library. Okay, so this dynamic link library, it is a library that is used. So let's say DLL, it is a library of code and data that is used by most programs at the same time, and this one is specifically for Microsoft. Okay, Microsoft. A dynamic link library is Microsoft's own library that can be used by Microsoft's programs or the programs that we install on the Windows operating system. So more than one program, many programs can use code from this library at the same time. One of the codes which are found within the DLL is the let me rewrite again. One of these ones is the DLG32 DLL. This code handles the common dialog boxes. It handles the dialog boxes. Alright, and how many programs require to use or require dialog boxes? If you try to think about the programs which need to have dialog boxes, there are plenty and they may be open at the same time. So COM DLG32 dynamic link library is the program which contains, or is the code which is being used by these plenty of programs at the same time. If you remove this library, or if you remove this code from the library, it means all the programs which were accessing that DLL are going to fail to handle dialog boxes because they were taking the code from the same source. So these are library programs. You can write your own library programs. You can create your own library of programs. Maybe you are in the business of making software and there is a certain framework that you need to use over and over again. Basically, that is a good idea, and that is what most programmers do. They create a framework, kind of a skeleton, where most of their programs are going to be built from. And it will be a good idea to make sure that the framework that you build is reusable and can be accessed by most of the programs that you make, maybe as an individual or as a company or an organization. It improves the use of memory. Think about a situation where each program is, okay, let's say each program has its network. Let's say program A needs network code A, program B needs network code B, program C needs network code C. Yet this network code is doing exactly the same thing, but you choose to write network code for program A, another one for program B. When your computer is running, it is going to run code for A, code for B, and code for C. This is a big waste of RAM and a big waste of even a big waste of computer memory in general. You don't want to get into a situation where each and every program that comes from you will be coming with its own code, instead of just taking advantage of code that is already in the destination where it is going. So the use of library programs helps us to create efficient code that can be reused, code that can be changed without reinstalling the original program. Let's look at a situation like this. Let's say we have a program that handles text. If the text rate changes, let's say rate changes, you don't need to uninstall and reinstall a program with new text rate. You can ask this program to borrow a library, to use a library that contains code for with text rate, and if text rate changes, you change it within the library. Then every other code that is using this library is going to use the new and correct text rate. So you no longer need to uninstall or to change this text code. What you need to simply change is the library, and once you change the library, all other programs which are borrowing from the library are going to enjoy the benefit. So that is less code. The advantage of library programs are very similar to the advantages that we see in the use of procedures and functions. We also see that in object-oriented programming, when we write objects, we are creating reusable code, and that comes with tons and tons of benefits. Okay, so this is one piece of software that you need to be familiar with. Let's look at another piece of software in our next lesson. Thank you.